Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, Smart Retirement Planning. Before we get going with today's event, I'll take care of some housekeeping and do the land acknowledgement, and then tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So if you can hear me and see the slide up on the screen, then you're good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the slide on the screen, let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 873-8946-4314 and the passcode 123123. You may have noticed that the mics and videos for attendees of the program have been disabled. That's so that everyone can focus on our presenters for the day. We do, however, welcome your questions and comments. Questions should go into the Q&A. That's the box with one little speech bubble. And comments can go in the chat. That's the one with the two little speech bubbles. And we do welcome your questions, and we'll have time for questions at the end. All right, now let's do the land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respect to their elders and descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories and culture and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We're dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kizh Nation, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. All right. Let us go ahead and now talk about the Work Ready program, and then I'll introduce our speakers for today. Work Ready started in December of 2020, and the library has been lending laptops and hotspots out of 27 library locations, as well as presenting virtual events on a range of work-related topics in order to help people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. And today, plan a more sustainable retirement. To see over 50 of our past events, you can head over to our YouTube channel where there's the work and career playlist. I'm going to post it in the chat. And you can see and share any of those programs. I say over 50, but there's probably closer to 100 now. The Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And before we get on to today's event, I also want to share with you what we have coming up next week on October 29th at 11 a.m. And that is Work Ready Careers in Fundraising. From grant writing to event planning, the field of fundraising has something for everyone. Join us for a panel discussion with experienced fundraising professionals who will describe their work and offer tips on entering the profession. And that program, of course, is just as this one is, absolutely free. Just posted the information for it in the chat, so you can sign up for that as you wish. And if you want to learn more about library programs, you can head over to lacountylibrary.org. On the top right-hand side, click Events, and you get all the events in person and virtual And if you're only interested in the virtual programs, you can hover over that events button. There'll be a little drop down. You hit virtual programs and you'll see all the Zoom events for kids, teens, adults, and older adults, all absolutely free from your library. All right, and now it's time to get going with today's program. And to do that, I want to introduce our conversationalists today. Tiffany Dyson is a graduate of Dartmouth College, where she studied sociology and Hispanic studies and played on the varsity softball team. For the past 6 years, she has been working for an investment firm where she delivers business building, execution, and training to investment and financial professionals. She trains financial advisors on growing their business using LinkedIn and supports their clients with education on job seeking, networking, and financial literacy. An LA County native, current resident of West Hollywood, she connects with the community through membership in Toastmasters and volunteering with Reading Partners, the Girl Scouts, and she has recently become the president of the Dartmouth Club of Los Angeles. Her interests and passions include being active outdoors and helping people improve their confidence with personal finance and professional development skills. And Tiffany's joined today by Jimmy Dyson, who grew up and still lives in Santa Clarita. He has worked at a grocery store for the last 40 years since he graduated high school in 1984, with a few stints doing other things. And today they will be discussing smart retirement planning. Tiffany and Jimmy, the stage is yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Oleg. I was trying to change the name so it would be Tiffany and Jimmy Dyson, but couldn't figure it out. Well, thank you so much for the warm introduction, for having us on the Work Ready program. This will be my third installment speaking on the Work Ready program, and 5 minutes in, it's already extremely sentimental. So I'm joined by my dad, Jimmy Dyson, and this is all about just creating a space, right, to talk about our future plans when it comes to retirement. We think that the more we talk about money, the more we talk about retirement and actually putting a plan in place, the more that will actually happen. So a little bit more on my background. I've worked in financial services for the last 6 years. I'm a certified financial education instructor, and I have seen so much about the economy, the markets, investing, that I've been almost shocked and appalled that it is not taught in schools, right? I graduated from college. I had never taken a personal finance class. If I would have, if I wouldn't have gone into the financial industry, I may not have the knowledge, the skills, or even the resources that I do now. So I find it, part of my passion to share these ideas, this knowledge, and really just try to help motivate people to talk about these things, both with themselves, but their loved ones too, because I think that the more we have conversations, the more open we are about money and financial planning, the more confident we can be in our decision making. So the goal of this conversation is really to educate, to motivate, and hopefully stimulate conversation and action. So with that, I'll turn it to my dad for a brief hello.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Dyson. I have worked in the grocery industry for 40 years, and I'm 58, so I have 4 more years before I could actually start collecting Social Security. And we'll get into that because there's different ages you can collect and this and that, and you get a percentage versus what age you do retire. And I've that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's really exciting to have, I think, 2 perspectives on the call, because I'm younger in my career. I'm approaching my 30s. So my retirement planning and strategy looks a lot different than my dad's, right? He is hopefully 4 or 5 years away from retirement. He's got a lot of working years under his belt. So we're hoping to provide a diverse perspective, and we know that within the audience and within people, for the people who are joining in, looking at the replay, there is a wide range of experiences, ages, occupations. So I do want to say that investments, retirement planning, financial planning, it is very personal and it's very personalized. So what works for me, what works for him, what works for you could be completely different. But again, we're really just hoping to motivate and stimulate conversation, and even perhaps encourage you to talk to a financial professional or seek more information on the web or at the library, of course. So we're really grateful to be here. And just before we really dive in, I want to share that while I have worked in the financial industry for some years, this is not individual investment advice. So we're mainly sharing our perspectives, our experiences for informational and educational purposes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for just a couple of slides to almost set the stage. Oops, and I did not restart it. So you're getting a sneak peek. So again, this is Work Ready Smart Retirement Planning. I think I saw a question coming through the chat saying that, asking about a replay. And from my understanding, Oleg will have that replay available on the Work Ready YouTube page. So you can check it out there. Now, on the screen here, you're going to see 5 things to do with.
Tiffany,
yes.
hang on. The screen is frozen right now. I don't think the presentation didn't come up.
Oh, let's see.
I'll try that again one more time.
Thank you.
So now I see you guys
I see
in living color and in motion.
Oh, here we go. I think you got to click start broadcast.
I see it says screen broadcast Zoom, and now I see the screen. There we go. There's the presentation.
Right. Okay, thank you. Thank you. That technology, right? We've been people working remotely. We've been on Zoom for 4+ years, and still something continues to surprise me every time. So thanks, Oleg, for that. Now on the screen here, you'll see 5 things to do with retirement planning. These are 5 things that you can start to think about, whether you're early in your career or approaching retirement. These will sort of guide our conversation and the questions that I asked my dad to kind of stimulate the conversation. But the first and foremost, you want to do a little bit of daydreaming, really, right? You want to envision when you're going to retire and how much you might need. Again, we'll get to more of this later, but just to set the stage, you want to try to maximize your retirement savings as much as possible, although we know life gets in the way. So this, again, is completely personalized to each person's unique situation. Throughout your career and your working years, you want to go back and review your portfolio progress. So if you set up a 401k, in your 20s, you want to make sure that you're taking a look, every few years, or maybe you work with the financial professional so that they can track the performance and make sure that you are still on track for a sustainable retirement. And then as you approach retirement, creating a Social Security strategy and considering retirement income streams. So really that is to say, while we're working, we're receiving a paycheck, right? Maybe it's a physical check, maybe it's direct deposit, maybe you're lucky and you get paid in cash. Now, in retirement, you're going to have to pull that income from different sources. So making sure to think about where those are coming from can be helpful. And then last up, before we dive in, zooming into maximizing retirement savings, this looks a little bit different depending on your age. So in the first decade or so of work, you want to start early, be consistent, maximize your employer's match if it's applicable, and then be a continuous or a lifelong learner. Now, in the last decade, it's a lot of the same. You want to continue to stay informed on any changes to the tax code. And then most importantly, I would say after your 50th birthday, you want to take advantage of what's called a catch-up contribution. So we'll talk about this a little bit more, but essentially the US government rewards people, maybe gives them a birthday present at age 50, where you can add an additional contribution to your 401k and your IRA. IRA for everyone is independent retirement account or individual retirement account. And it's just, again, a way for the government to help encourage people to save a little bit more as they're in the home stretch. So with that, I'm going to stop broadcasting my screen, return to our Zoom, get us on the screen, and start with our first question. And the first question, Dad, is in your 20s, in the 1980s, what did retirement planning education look like?
So when I first started working, and I was lucky enough to work at a union job that had a pension. So I knew I had a pension, and I knew of Social Security, but never really got involved with talking about Social Security or what's happening, because I'm 20 years old. I'm just making money. I don't care about that. So many years away that a lot of people don't think about it. My parents, they never really talked about it too much with me, hardly ever at all with me about it. And but that was one of the things that I think has changed now. A lot of people, they start thinking about retirement the first day they start working. Oh, what kind of 401k? What are you giving me to work for you? There's a lot of companies that the incentives are what people want. Are you going to match my contribution? Are you going to, do I have a pension? Do I only have a 401k? What's going on with that?
Yeah. And even in the 1980s, 401ks were a new concept. Right. So, there are always changes even throughout our, ages and careers that may come into effect. So I think,
because like she said, and 401k, everyone's a little scared. Am I going to put money there? Who's backing that? What happens if where's all my money is going to be lost? Could I just lose it all? So it took a little while for the general public to catch on to 401k. So, hey, this is a good way of saving money.
Absolutely. And like you said, they've since incentivized businesses and the individuals. 401k contributions are tax deductible, so they lower your taxable income, which can help you save money on taxes.
Correct.
One other thing that you said was, wasn't necessarily talked about in the household, right? My grandma and grandpa's Nana and Tata, Nana and Tata weren't necessarily talking about that, but that wasn't just your household. I think, from talking with friends and colleagues, money is something that is not talked about between people as much as, or really as important as money is, right? As much as it is involved in our daily lives, it is something that we like to shy away from, right? Just because it is a little bit of a personal topic. But I think maybe with technology, right? Maybe with LA County Library offering more platforms for the conversation, more and more people are becoming curious and really seeing the long-term benefit of that planning.
Yeah, and we might go into this or not, I don't know 100%. But everyone wants, like I said, there's so many things out there talking about retirement. Oh, I need this much. I need a lot of money to retire, so I have to start figuring out how to get that money. Yeah. And no matter what, you have to start early. Whatever it is you do, just start early and stay consistent.
Start early. They say that the best time to start investing or saving for retirement was yesterday, but the second best time is today. So with thinking about retirement planning, you also mentioned even Social Security.
Mhm.
If you're, in your 20s, that seems like an eternity away. So it can be difficult to kind of wrap our heads around the importance of saving for 40 years in the future, when there is so much out there today that is kind of competing for our attention and our money, right? There's expenses, there's day-to-day life, there's businesses you might invest in. There's so much, again, competing for that dollar, that if you don't proactively set aside money for retirement, it it doesn't necessarily disappear, right? You get things for it, but it doesn't necessarily set you up for success.
And most companies in most places now, they make it easy. You never see the money. They draw it out of your check weekly. You're like, oh, so I'm missing $40 from this check. It doesn't matter. But then it goes into the 401, or it goes into a savings if you want to just do it in savings, and then you don't miss it.
Right.
And you're like, okay, cool. And then about a year, 2-3 years later, you're like, I got some money loaded in there. It's actually making me money. So this is cool. So when you see that, you get excited. You're like, oh, it's making money.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's instant gratification versus versus yourself, versus delayed gratification. Yeah. Absolutely. And something you said around around waiting or that automation.
Right. Oh yeah.
That automation is so helpful, because this is a common theme. We're kind of fighting ourselves, right? Human nature is that instant gratification. So as much as you can automate, right? You can have it taken directly from your paycheck, or maybe you set something up for general savings where, okay, the day that I get my paycheck, I'm going to have my bank send, whether it's $20, $50, $100 to
Tiffany,
a savings account.
We had a great comment in the chat here. It's a 65-year-old here. I will say that opening a Roth IRA, even with a tiny amount, like $50 a month, gets you used to doing it, and you get ego boost of seeing it grow.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, that ego boost, that it's confidence, right? It's okay, I'm not just putting $50 away for the heck of it. I'm putting it away to make it grow. So that is really helpful. And I love that there are people using the chat. So feel welcome to share your own stories or advice, right? We want this to be a conversation with everyone, and
there's no bad advice.
Not true. We'll talk about that later. But maybe don't share your personal information, of course, no account information, or don't feel like you need to share specific dollar amounts. But the more experience we share with each other, I think the more informed everyone is. So great. So we talked about automation. We talked about our upbringings, and how even the ways that we are talking about money in the household can influence our financial behavior. Now I see a question that just popped up in the chat about, it says, what is a Roth IRA? So just to level set, so we've mentioned a 401k. A 401k is an employer sponsored retirement plan. So if you work for a business, a company, they may have a 401k available for you as part of their benefits package. And within the 401k, some companies will even match your contributions. So maybe I contribute 5% of my salary to a 401k, and my employer matches everything up to 2%. So it's almost like free money there. Yeah. That's definitely a hack. If you're not already maximizing to your employer match, try to budget it in. Now that's 401k. IRA, again, individual retirement account. Now there are two types of IRAs, the traditional and the Roth. So both are individual accounts that you can open up regardless of your employer status. So if you're a small business owner, if you're a waiter, an actor, we're in LA, even if you also work for a business and have access to a 401k, you can open these up usually within a brokerage account, or like a Fidelity, a Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. This would, definitely require some research on your end, depending on where you would want to open it up. But the IRA is an additional retirement account that you can create. Now, the difference between traditional and Roth, and if you Google traditional versus Roth, there will be a lot of different comparisons to dive even deeper. But at a high level, the difference is essentially when you get taxed. So a traditional IRA, you are paying taxes on that money that you put away when you withdraw it in retirement. So you're getting taxed later. A Roth IRA, you pay the taxes up front. So you pay the taxes when you contribute. And then when you retire and you're eligible to take your money out, you don't have to pay taxes on it because you've already paid the taxes. So a little way to remember is just that, Uncle Sam will always get his taxes, right? So for traditional, Uncle Sam's getting the taxes later. For Roth, Uncle Sam is getting the taxes now. And again, there are some nuances with income limits. So if you make above a certain amount, what you contribute to an IRA may or may not be deductible. So for everyone's specific circumstance, definitely do some more research or consult with a financial professional. But while we're on the topic of these retirement accounts, annually there is a contribution limit. So you can't contribute your $100,000 salary completely into one of these retirement accounts. For the 401k, and I think I just saw something else pop up in the chat about a 403b. So a 403b, right? Not to make it too complicated, and I know there are a lot of different retirement account options for different types of businesses. You're right, Sadia. 403b is basically a 401k. It's an employer-sponsored plan for nonprofit organizations. Now, for the 401k, for the 2024 annual contribution limit, it's $23,000. So $23,000. That's obviously a great chunk of change if you are able to allocate that much, depending on your paychecks, your income. That's fantastic. Now, we talked about being 50 years or older. You get that catch-up contribution availability. So if you're over 50 years old and you have a 401k with your employer, you can contribute an additional $7,500. So $7,500, making it, I think doing the math, $30,500 if you're over 50. Now, again, your employer may match, so they may contribute a little bit, and the maximum contribution for both employer and employee contributions is about $69,000. So again, you can't contribute that entire income, but what a great way to save for the long term and potentially get down your taxable income. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you made $100,000 as your annual income and you contributed the maximum of $23,000, your taxable income is only, and I'm going to butcher the math here, but is only, let's see if we can do 77,000. Hopefully that's right. Don't correct me in the comments if it isn't. But the IRA, just to close this loop, the IRA annual contribution limit is $7,000 for 2024. A lot lower, right? You'll notice quite a discrepancy there. And if you are 50 years and older, it's a $1,000 catch-up contribution. So I'm going to take a breath there. But I appreciate the questions, and again, hoping that this is the start of the conversation, right? If you're asking what a Roth IRA is, hopefully you took some notes, but I also hope you are doing some Google searching or maybe talking to a financial advisor as well. Because, again, we talked about this stuff is not taught in school, right? I think California did recently pass, pass a bill making it a state that requires personal finance to be offered. So it's offered in schools, and this might take a couple years to be implemented. But it's not a perfect science, right? Because they can offer it, but kids might not take it.
It's not mandatory.
Yeah, so it still requires the conversation, and a little bit of motivation there. So moving on to our next planned question. Okay, so Dad, you are 5 years away from retirement. What would you tell your younger self when it comes to work and/or retirement planning?
So obviously, like I said, when I was younger, retirement was not even on the radar. Now it's the only thing on the radar. I have 4 more years till I could actually start collecting Social Security, and a little less than 4 years where I can actually start taking money out of my 401k without paying a penalty.
Yes, which is 59 and a half.
59 and a half.
So, and I'll just pause you there so I can explain. So you're within your 401k, your retirement accounts, there is a penalty if you withdraw the money earlier. So let's say you have a 401k, you're 30 years old, and you want to buy a flashy new car. Now, this is, hopefully, not everyone on the call, but certainly some. Now, if you withdraw that money because you just really need that car, you're going to pay a 10% penalty and the ordinary income tax of that money. So you're going to, Uncle Sam's going to get he's going to get the taxes, and you're going to have a 10% penalty. So if that fancy car costs $10,000, which is a great deal,
more.
$10,000, you take out $10,000, you're paying the taxes, and you're paying a $1,000 penalty fee. So it's
and now your 401k is light.
Lower.
Now it's light, it's lower, so it's not going to accumulate as fast because now you took out the balance, of the balance,
right?
Because you need, the more money you have in there, the faster it grows, and that's part of the genius or the thing of a 401k is it just keeps growing, and that's the point.
And that's investing, kind of investing in general. There's a concept called the power of compounding interest. And the idea is, and again, this is another complicated concept. But when we invest in the market, right? Because if you have a 401k, typically your money is invested in the market, mutual funds, ETFs, etc. And when you put that initial investment, so let's say, I've got $1,000 investment. Now, after 1 year, hopefully, I guess look at this year. This year, the stock market, in general, is up about 20%. So that means my $1,000 investment has grown 20%. Now, the next year, I have, $1,200. So it just continues to kind of compound. You can think of it like, the money that your money makes is also making money. So it's a little abstract, but if you look at the historical performance of the market, there are some pretty significant gains that can really make retiring a lot easier and a lot more comfortable.
Right.
So I interrupted you, continue.
So my younger self, I would tell my younger self to try to maximize what you can put into these 401k, only because, you're saving us. If you're saving half of what you can maximize, that's good. But if you maximize it, it's even better, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then even my younger self wasn't so much worried about a 401 because, I have a pension, I have Social Security. But as years have gone by, you realize a lot of people are saying, well, that's not gonna make it. It's not gonna be enough. Is it gonna be there? There's a lot of ifs, ands on that. So you want to get every possible amount you can to retire on. Right. And the 401k is one of the better tools, it's one of the better tools to save money, because you're not going to save that much money on your own if it's not compounding or going up.
Yeah. And this is funny because you're talking to your younger self, but you're also talking to, to me and, my 21-year-old brother. He's in school and has a part-time job. And I think
it's funny. Yeah. You brought that up because I told him, because his company has a 401, and I said, just start it. It doesn't matter what percentage you put in. They match. I go, it doesn't matter. You just start it now.
Just start.
That's way younger than I ever would have put into a 401k. Now, if he does it for his whole life, he can retire earlier than I can, guaranteed.
Yeah. And it's to your point, okay, Social Security, retirement accounts, pensions, if possible, if applicable. It's all about giving yourself options, because there are a lot of people who think that Social Security will be enough to, fund retirement. And, if you do some math, and I think I've got it on one of my slides, the average Social Security benefit check is a $1,700 monthly check. So $1,700, which is a lot. That is a lot of money. That's the average. So it will depend on how much you have made throughout your working years. But $1,700, think about your expenses. Think about your grocery bill, right?
It's going to depend on what lifestyle you want to live when you retire too.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. So retirement, that question, how much do I need for retirement, depends on what you have saved, right? What are your options? Where do you live, right? What location, right? California is a very expensive place, right? We've got the most beautiful weather in the middle end of October, but it comes at a cost. Your lifestyle, right? What you plan on doing. And then even thinking about longevity. How long are you going to live? And what is your health in retirement going to look like? Because that's one of the most expensive things in retirement.
And that's the way you don't think of that one when you're young. Well, I'm never going to be sick. I'm not going to need money for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
But then when you get older and you see what happens to people, you're like, oh, well, shoot, I do need that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, one financial advisor I've talked to in the past, she outlined something really well that I want to share with everyone, and feel welcome to put your answer in the chat, because I think it's a lot of fun to daydream, to envision your retirement. But when somebody asked this financial advisor the question, how much do I need in retirement? She responded with another question. She said, in retirement, what kind of shoes will you be wearing? And it's funny, right? You laugh. It's funny, but it gets you thinking, okay, yeah, what kind of lifestyle do I want? Do I want hiking shoes because I'm going to be traveling in Europe? Or, do I have, bare feet because I'm on a beach resort? Or am I have in-house slippers because I just want to enjoy my home and my yard, right? There's obviously no technical number that provides, but it can be helpful to just start getting you thinking about that lifestyle in retirement. But on that topic, what do you want your retirement to look like?
Yeah, so I don't want to have to work. Some people retire and they want to work. The only reason that I want, if I work after I retire, the only reason would be because I'm bored. But I don't think that'll happen. We'll see. Because a lot of people do get bored. They need work.
Yeah.
But you know, you hear, oh, I'm bored, I don't do nothing. Well, then you can get a job that you like or you want to do for fun, and it's not because financially you need it. That's the kicker. The thing is to have enough money so you know, so you don't have to stress about it. No matter, I think no matter where you are in life, you stress about money. But this, at least, you finally get, okay, I make enough, I'm good, everything, you know, I can enjoy myself and not have to, oh, I got to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
So,
That's financial security.
yeah.
Right. That's the essence of financial security is, and you can keep working and be financially secure,
Yeah.
or hopefully in retirement, you have given yourself enough options to be financially secure, to relax and really enjoy your golden years, which is exactly what retirement is for. I think, I think everybody deserves some enjoyment and some financial security in retirement. It's just all about these options, and unfortunately, it takes a little bit of
Planning.
elbow grease and planning. Exactly. Now, throughout the conversation, we've talked about, you have a 401k, an IRA. Soon you'll have Social Security. Now, you also have pension, which we've said a couple times. So I just want to level set with people. A pension was much more common in, let's say, like the 70s, 80s. Now, the pension is what's called a defined benefit. And it means that at a certain year that you hit, so
the way mine works is it's called a golden 85.
Golden 85.
It's age plus years worked.
Okay.
When that number equals 85, I can start collecting my pension.
Okay.
Like right now, I could start collecting my pension.
Do it.
But I wouldn't be able to be working also.
Yes.
I would have to get out of the job and then collect my pension.
Right. Can't double dip.
Right. Yeah, I can't double dip. But then after 85, reach the number of golden 85, every year I work, it does increase a little bit. So I'm not set flat.
Right. Yeah. So there's benefits to waiting for the pension.
Correct.
And so just wanted to share that's very specific to your employer.
Correct.
And I think typically more union jobs
almost always have them.
Yeah. Think about like the police have a pension, firefighters have a pension.
City.
City. So that may or may not be applicable, but since we've thrown it around a couple of times, just wanted to share that. Now above and beyond all of those things, which is good. This is, again, a lot of options. How else would you fund your golden years?
So we talked about this one time. So I'm lucky enough I purchased a home. I don't own the home yet, but I purchased a home. I'm living in the home. That's your biggest expense is your mortgage. Once you can get out of the mortgage, that becomes your cash cow if you want to use it that way. You could rent that house here in California, especially, and live wherever you want. That's income stream if you want. Yeah. Now that not everyone's in that boat. So, but we talked about this a little bit. It's like, try to invest in some real estate if you can. No matter, you may think it's impossible and it's hard because right now their interest rates are this and that, blah, blah, blah. But start out at a townhome or a condo and then move out of that one later. It just depends on the situation. But real estate is one of the better investments you could make.
Right. And this is not investment advice.
Yeah.
It's just his personal experience and opinion. And this is obviously not a real estate conversation, but I think it is interesting to think about. There are a lot of different ways that you can fund, retirement. And, again, he and my mother have been very fortunate to have bought a house in the early 2000s, have made it through the global financial crisis.
But when we did that too, that's a lot of money. You're scared. You sure you want it? No matter when you buy, there's always the fear factor of buying because it's like, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money.
It is a big investment.
It's your biggest.
But again, like you said, it's a strategy for them. So, let's say retirement comes and they want a little bit more of a safety net. they can rent it out, like you said, which is going to be a little bit more hands-on, or they can
cash
sell
out.
it,
Cash
right?
out.
So that's just, one other thing to
Correct.
think about if possible. I mean, in addition, and actually something that's interesting when it comes to the, obviously, again, different people have different retirement plans, the different options available to them. For me, I don't have a pension. Like, I won't have a pension. I've got a 401k that I've started. I'll be, opening up an IRA. And then I also have something that's called an HSA. So an HSA, not to throw one more acronym at you all, but an HSA is a health savings account. And this, please look it up. This is one of the most unique tax savings vehicles there is, because it's what they call triple tax advantaged. So the money that I put into my HSA is not taxed. The money that, if I invest it, the money that grows, not taxed. And then as long as I take it out and use it on a qualified, a item or event, which means something to do with healthcare, right? I might pay a copay, I might pay a doctor's visit, a surgery. As long as it's a medical or healthcare expense, it is not taxed. So you really don't get that many other places. And it's available if you have a high deductible health insurance plan. So, for example, my mom and dad, I think PPO, HMO, like, they actually cannot open an HSA because of the insurance type that they have. I mean, that's okay because they have the pension, right? They have other options. For me, because I've, had a high deductible healthcare plan, it's been a great additional, high deductible, thank you. Okay, Matt. Thank you, Matthew. High deductible and higher premium. So it's HDHP would be the acronym, HDHP. So something to think about, if it's applicable to you. But then again, that just illustrates the differences between,
Right.
certain retirement plans. And something that I wanted to share, just because it's very relevant for me right now, is really on that reviewing portfolio progress point. So, as we go through our careers, maybe we change jobs, it can be pretty important to make sure you know where your money is. So, if you've changed jobs a few times, there are possible strategies to condense or consolidate those retirement accounts so they're in one place. With job transitions, maintaining the 401k can be a little bit daunting. For example, I will be transitioning to a new company at the start of November. And I talked to, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, which is where my 401k is held with my employer. And they walked through a few options I have, because if I keep my 401k, I'm going to have this service fee, kind of this quarterly or monthly service fee. And I'm not going to be able to contribute anything else into that because I no longer work for the company. Now, I think they listed 5 different options, but one of the options is actually a rollover option. So a rollover to an IRA. So what Merrill Lynch is going to help me do is roll over my 401k assets into an IRA so that I have a little bit more control over it. And because I'm adding to my IRA, to the annual limit, it will all be in one place, right? A little less for me to think about and forget about, right? There are many abandoned 401ks out there, so don't let that be you. And again, just since I'm going through that right now, wanted to share with everyone. So we have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions before we pull the crowd. But We've alluded to the fact that money is emotional, right? It's difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
What emotions have you experienced through different market volatilities?
So, I mean, if you watch the news and you hear all the news, and oh, the stock market's going to crash. Oh, it's crashing. Oh, and there'll be days that the Dow drops 400 points, 600 points. So it's cyclical, goes up and down. So you want,
Historically, it's been cyclical, yeah.
and you want the average, which is in the middle, and everyone there's some you're not don't panic and sell everything when it's dropping, because it'll usually goes back up, and you haven't lost any money until you sell anyway. It's all still on paper and it's still there.
Yeah. So those are good points. So like market volatility, right? The market goes up and it goes down, and you can never really predict, where or when it's going to peak
the highest
or valley. But it there is greed and fear when we're in the market, right? When we when we see that their market is up, we get a little greedy, right? We want to take advantage of those great returns. But then, in the low points, when, the market is down, which when the market is down, essentially the market is down, it means that the cost to invest
You're buying more.
is actually less.
Yeah.
So you can buy more. And it's easy to be fearful in those low moments, because you think, okay, how much farther is it going to go down? But if we stay consistent, it is something called dollar cost averaging. That's a strategy where, instead of on one day out of the year, you invest, all of your risk capital or the investment capital you have. You invest on one day, you get that one price. Versus dollar cost averaging is putting in a little bit in different times. So maybe once a month you're investing just a little bit, and maybe you're investing the same amount as that lump sum, but you're getting different prices and potentially, taking advantage of some of the low points. So dollar cost averaging is a strategy that you can look up in terms of investing that can at least help, really help with that automation point, and help try to take out that human emotion as much as possible, because it is human instinct, right? It is human instinct to avoid loss and avoid pain. Loss aversion is a huge thing within behavioral finance and investing. And that's why so many people work with a financial advisor, right? They work with financial advisors because they're looking at the markets all day, every day. They have so many different clients who are, going through similar things, and they just have the experience to be able to share that with your own strategy. It's the same reason we go to a doctor, right? So that's a good point. And on just emotion, trying to take it out as much as possible. Another thing that might help ease the pain is something called diversification. So diversification is when we have different or diverse investments instead of owning, a single company. So within a 401k or retirement account, you will likely have the option to invest in mutual funds. Mutual funds are pools, pools of money that go into multiple different companies. So there may be a mutual fund that has 3% in Apple, 2% in Microsoft, 2% in Tesla. So you're diversified in that your money is going a lot of different places in case one of those companies doesn't do well, right? They miss earnings, or they underperform and they drop. So if you're in a mutual fund or diversified in a lot of different companies, it can soften the blow when there are downturns, both in the market and for individual companies. So diversification is another concept to think to keep in mind and to think about. Legendary investor Warren Buffett talks about, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So that's a great idea to keep in mind as well. And with our last question, we've touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to see what your full retirement age is, which is essentially a Social Security question. So I'm going to share my screen again, and I promise to start the broadcast properly. So I'm going to skip over a couple slides here. So we've got some Social Security basics on the screen. Ages 62 to 70. Oh, and I'm corrected here. So according to the Social Security Administration, the estimated average 2024 monthly Social Security benefits are $1,900 for retired workers, or $1,537 for workers with a disability. So 1,900 is,
but yeah,
is pretty good.
Up. That goes up a little bit every year.
Yeah, but again, it's all about providing yourself with options and making sure that your lifestyle, matches what you have both saved and available within Social Security. Now, this last point here is really touching on the point of delaying. So you're eligible for Social Security when you hit age 62, but you don't have to take it until age 70. And each year that you delay receiving those benefits increases the check amount, right? The benefit amount by 8% per year. Now, 8% per, that's pretty significant. So, one Social Security strategy is to, have had these retirement accounts with, enough savings to last you a little bit longer, right? Maybe to 65 or 66, so you can get that additional increase as you wait. Now,
that'll be different for everyone too, depending on their year they're born.
Yes, yeah, and that's what we have next. So the Social Security Administration calls this your full retirement age. It's when you're eligible for the maximum benefits, and it depends on what year you were born. So for both my dad and me, we were born, and I should actually put it's 1960 and later. So our full retirement age is 67 years old. So those are some of the options, and I know we've gone over a lot of information. Yeah. It's like it's flown by. We've covered a lot, and I know this is not the easiest topic or concept to wrap your head around. Again, I'm grateful that I've been in the financial industry, so I feel, and I've become licensed, and I'm certified as a financial education instructor. So I've studied this more than I did, when I was actually in school. But even me and even, other financial professionals, we're constantly learning things. So I encourage you to continue the conversation, continue learning as much as possible. And we'll close or conclude with a couple, key points that I hope, weaved throughout the conversation. Starting early or starting as soon as possible. That can help you take advantage of the power of compounding. Be consistent. So, right, maybe we automate and be consistent. Stay the course. So we talked about
don't cash it out.
Yeah, don't try not to withdraw so you don't hit that penalty. And then, of course, educate yourself and have these conversations with friends, family, coworker. I'm truly grateful to the LA County Library and Oleg specifically for entertaining the idea of this conversation, because my dad and I have talked about finances more than ever before. And I think it'll continue, right?
Yeah.
You get more comfortable, you get more confident, and it's just something that is a big part of our lives. So, why shouldn't we be open and curious about this, this part of our lives? So I will pause there and say thank you. And I guess if you have any, if you want to say thank you.
No, thank you for having let me do this. It was very fun. It was interesting, and I'm still learning, obviously, a lot, and it just it brings you don't think about it till you have to. That's why we're telling you to start thinking about it early if you can. If you haven't, don't. If you don't even have one now, you can still start one.
Yeah.
No matter what age, start it, do it. Because it does roll and it accumulates.
Absolutely.
So it's never too late to start.
It is never too late.
Awesome. But yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Feel welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I know there's a lot of activity that's been in the chat. So Oleg, I will open it back up to you if there are any specific questions that had come through that you think we should address.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of questions, but one before we start the questions, I just want to say that part of the reason for the fact that this is a conversation and the encouragement that you gave to the folks to have these conversations or just to keep doing the research is that the terms that you used, it's a lot of acronyms.
Yeah.
It's a lot of concepts that aren't immediately clear. But the more you talk about them, the more you research, the more these terms will reappear in your life and they'll become familiar. And then you can feel sort of more empowered to think about investing, think about planning for retirement, and all these other financial concepts.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It can be a little confusing. So, again, this is just scratching the surface and just starting the conversation. So continue learning and researching yourself. And again, financial advisors. There are many financial advisors out there. If I think about, just some of the different firms, it's, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, Ameriprise, LPL, Raymond James, Edward Jones. These are all broker dealers that have financial advisors available to investors and clients. And
we had a question actually that's related to that exact statement. That is, what is the average cost of a financial advisor?
Yeah, the average cost. So it's going to vary. Not to get myself out of the answering the question, but some advisors are fee based. So they will take a certain fee depending on how much you invest. Other financial advisors are commission based. So depending on what the investments make, they're getting a commission. So that is, if you are having a conversation, like a free consultation, which many financial advisors do offer, that is a perfect question to ask them, right? What is the cost of working with you? And you'll see that it does vary from advisor to advisor.
And the difference partially is that some advisors, they sell products as well as provide advice. And so that's something to note when it comes to the that doesn't mean that advice is going to be biased. It might be, but it might not be. It's a consideration.
It is a consideration. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm seeing one question that I want to zoom in on. Alan asked, he's 65, he's lucky enough to retire with a pension and Social Security. And he talks about, he has a Roth and traditional IRA. How do I think about which accounts to draw from first and in what sequence? Now, this is very specific. So I'm not going to give any specific advice, but I'll just encourage you to think about the tax treatments with your Roth and traditional accounts. So the general strategy, and this is a very common question, the general strategy in like Roth versus traditional is to think about your your taxes, and whether, for someone who's younger, whether your taxes are higher now, or if you expect them to be higher later. And in your case, Ellen, with already being in retirement, it may depend on how you think taxes may change in the near term. So if you've got one account that you've already paid taxes on and another account that you haven't paid taxes on, well, if one year you work part-time and you actually end up with taxable income, that may change which makes sense from a tax savings basis. Yeah. So not a direct answer. Feel like a politician here, but just something to get you thinking about.
It depends. That's a good question for an accountant, because then you can balance out your tax exposure.
Yeah. And then actually one other one from Matthew. So he asks, for my dad, are you diversifying into bonds and other more safe investments as you get close to retirement? And I'm going to share my screen again because I have a little slide on that. And
we put some more in bonds.
Investments again, deeply personal, deeply strategic. Now, and I'm going to scroll through a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to slide rolling off the side. So the general rule of thumb for allocating your investments based on your age, it goes a little like this. So essentially, your bond allocation would be your age. So for a 25-year-old, that would be 25% in bonds. And then for the stock allocation, it would be 100 minus 25, 75%, 80%. Now, this is, again, very general, not investment advice, but it's to help illustrate the idea that if you look at me and my dad, I have, 35 years until retirement. That's a lot of time for market, volatility. And it's a lot of time for me to recover anything that's, quote unquote, lost on a down market. Now, for my dad, since he is 5 years out of retirement, his time horizon is much shorter. So because he has less time until retirement, we would rather put a little bit more money in an investment vehicle that is supposed to, traditionally or historically, a little bit safer, a little bit more
less volatile.
Yeah. So here on the screen, you'll see a hypothetical allocation for, a 25-year-old, 20% bonds, 80% stocks. And just for everyone on the call, bonds are typically a more conservative or a less risky asset versus stocks, which are shares in a company. Now, if we look at this hypothetical allocation for a 45-year-old, they're going to shift their allocation since they're getting closer to retirement. So now they've got 40% bonds, a little less stocks, again, so that they can be strategic and be almost mindful of how less time they have. So again, just kind of illustrative, just to get you thinking. This is really fundamental, or rather, kind of foundational. And then of course it can get a little bit more nuanced or complex as you start to think of other ways of investing and other considerations. So just kind of a rule of thumb to get you thinking about asset allocation based on age.
It's all about risk management there, because to balance out the volatility of stocks and the more conservative risk factors of
absolutely.
bonds. So there was a question here that I'm really curious about the answer to as well, because I think there are other people who are in this situation. And that is, what can people with gig jobs do to save for retirement? My daughter works Uber and Lyft. Are there options for her?
That is a great question. And yeah, we're seeing more and more people with gig jobs. So jobs that, may not be necessarily tied to the benefits that an
Mhm.
employer or a business provides. So, this might even look like a contractor, right? A contractor who comes into a company, works for a little bit. And the IRA is going to be something that a gig worker, may look into. So that individual retirement account, that is something that you can open up, within your brokerage platform, whichever you use. And while it's only, the contribution limit is only $7,000 for this year, that's still 7,000 more dollars than you may have otherwise spent. Right? It's all about like paying yourself first. People think of that like your retirement account, that's paying yourself first. So you're going to pay for your expenses and other things, but setting that aside, maybe automating it, that can be a really helpful strategy. So IRAs would be something to look into. There's also something called I believe it's the self-employed 401k. So individuals who are self-employed can create a 401k. There are different, limits and restrictions. And I'll be fully honest with you, I don't know if gig workers apply to this, but that might be something to consider or look into as well. So
Is that the SEP IRA? A few people mentioned that in the chat.
the SEP IRA is the simplified. Let me just see again.
There's so many out
There
there.
are so
It's
many.
so hard
Yeah,
to keep track of the
absolutely.
various
And
options out there.
exactly. And I do recognize what we're talking about is for more, traditional kind of like
Mhm.
either corporate America or just that kind of 9 to 5. Um, 9 to 5.
Right.
He's like 4 a.m. to 1 p.m. So the SEP IRA is called the Simplified Employee Pension Plan. This is something that you'd have to look into. I believe it is still an employer. Let me see. So okay, so it says, and it's a quick Google search onto the IRS website. So, we can get our advice from many different places, right? I know TikTok, there are financial influencers, but you always want to try to go to the most, most certified, most kind of institutional place. And the IRS.gov, SSA, which is Social Security Administration.gov, those are great places to start. So a SEP IRA can be established by a business of any size, even self-employed. So that may be applicable to you. And then let me just check the self 401k. It's called a solo 401k. That's the proper word for it.
I'm gonna have to get some links and post them put them in the follow-up email, because
Yeah.
I'm learning here too, and getting these all in order.
Yeah, absolutely. And something while we're on the topic of websites and helpful resources, with Social Security, this is obviously something that's a little bit more relevant for people who are approaching retirement. But if you go to ssa.gov, anyone of any age can create a Social Security account. And you can do a lot of different things. You can estimate your benefits, you can learn more. But what is most important about creating an account, even if you're in your 20s and 30s, is that it makes it a lot more difficult for cyber criminals, to create an account on your behalf. Yeah. So especially if you are approaching retirement, make sure you make an account online. It's free and it's relatively easy to set up. But that just, obviously you put a safe password and everything. And that's just so that, again, somebody can't steal your social security number and start collecting those checks before you, because I've I've had financial advisors tell me of those horror stories, and it's pretty difficult to reverse. Yeah.
So we are at time. Do you have time for one more question?
Yeah, one more question because I don't want to end on a scary note, even
Yeah.
though it's Halloween coming up.
Let's do one more question. And I know there are other questions in the chat, and unfortunately, we just don't have time. We have to do another program where it's just Q&A.
Yeah, right.
That
Oh yeah, I love that.
So the question is, can you open an HSA if your employer doesn't offer it, or is your employer the only one who can offer to open an HSA for you?
So this is a great question, and it's more dependent on the type of insurance that you have. So it's HDHP, high deductible, high premium insurance plan. Some employers, like my previous employer, offered that plan. So I was able to enroll in the HSA or open up an HSA. My partner, he is a small business owner. So he does, I guess he is his employer, right? And because he has a high deductible, high premium insurance plan, he is able to open that for himself, even though it's not necessarily offered through the employer. So definitely look into what kind of insurance plan you have and whether that you're able to.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Jimmy, for this insightful conversation. Get people, if for some people out there getting started in thinking about retirement, no matter how late it is, today is the day.
Yeah.
And then for people who already know, give a little bit more information, a little bit more info and insight about things that people have already been thinking about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to the LA County Library for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And thank you for the audience. We have a short survey that will pop up once the program is over. And we do appreciate your feedback on that. We'll hopefully see you next week. So with that said, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.